Now, when it comes to supplies for making this shawl, it's really such a basic pattern. We don't need anything super fancy. You can actually choose whichever yarn you want to use for this. I'm going to talk more about that in a second when we talk about the yarn I'll be using on camera today. But this shawl I made here that you see with all these rainbow colors is the Coco Merino. This is a gorgeous merino weight. This is more of a sport weight. I'll be making it with a DK weight for a small sample today. It's very similar in weight to this, however, and then you'll also see examples in photos where I made it in, well, my sister made it in a bulky yarn. So we're going to talk about those in a second. But to get started, if you want to get started the way that it's done in pattern, which is this rainbow style shawl, you will need a 5mm crochet hook. That's what I'm using with the Coco Merino. Scissors. Stitch markers are never a bad idea to mark the start and end of the row, and even the center peak increase of a triangle shawl. So if you want to mark the center of the increase, the beginning of the row, and then the end of the row on the other side, that can save you a lot of grief when it comes to stitches, because that's the area that we will be increasing in. You'll need a yarn needle to weave in those ends, and then just some fun time with some yarn. As far as yardage goes, I have included that in the pattern and in the description of everything of how much yarn I used for this sample. But the cool thing about this is you can really make it any size that you want because of the way that it's constructed. So let's go ahead and get started with that sample. Now for this wheat stitch triangle shawl, on camera today, I'm going to be using the Loops and Thread Ombre. This is a soft ombre. It's a polyester blend. I'm really liking the softness of it, and I find it meets the, even though it's labeled a 3-weight, it is somewhat similar in weight. But once again, you can make this shawl in any yarn you want. The main thing is just to figure out which hook to use with which yarn to like the drape, and then go and make it the size you want. So let's get started with the instructions so you can be whipping up a beautiful shawl. Now to get started, we are going to set ourselves up for success here. Our first 2 rows are going to be setup rows, and this is going to be worked in a magic ring or magic circle to get started. So I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to be working our very first set of stitches inside this circle, but we're not going to be working in the round. So don't think because we're doing a circle, we're working in the round, we're working in rows. And we're going to start by single crocheting 3, and then we're going to chain 2, and then single crochet 3. Now we have a total of 6 stitches and a chain 2 space. If you want to use stitch markers, it's never a bad idea when doing a new stitch or something you just want to not really pay attention to stitch counts, because for this one, you can put stitch markers on the beginning and the end of each row, and then you can also put a stitch marker at the chain 2 space, and that way when you're working this, you know exactly where you are and what you want to do. Now we can close that ring, but like I said, we're not joining. We are going to turn our work, and this is where we're going to be doing some increasing. So we're going to chain 1, and our chain 1 at the beginning of the row does not count as a stitch. It's just a turning chain. And now working in the very first stitch, we are going to single crochet 2. And for every row, you will find the very first and last stitches. I like to single crochet through both loops. I find it just makes a cleaner edge. And if you need to, mark the first stitch of the row here. Then in the back loop only, and this is the front loop, and then we've got the back loop. In the back loop only, we are going to single crochet 2. And now we're at our chain 2 space. So this is where we have the chain 2 space, and we are going to single crochet into that chain 2 space, chain 2, and then single crochet into that chain 2 space. So we're working that all on chain 2 space. We're working a single crochet, a chain 2, and a single crochet. And now we're going to single crochet in the back loop only for the next 2 stitches. And now that we are to the last stitch of this row, we are going to work 2 single crochet stitches into the last. And that is our setup. And now we're ready to work our 4-row repeat. We can already see a little bit of a triangle here. And we're going to go right into our 4-row repeat. And this is the repeat we will use again and again until we reach the size we want. So once we get this repeat down, this goes really, really quick. I mean, it gets longer the bigger the fabric gets, but you know what I mean. So we are going to turn our work and chain 1. We're going to work 2 single crochet stitches into the very first stitch. And now we're going to be working our wheat stitch. So we're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet into the next. We're going to go back to that skip stitch and we're going to work a modified puff. So we're going to yarn over, work into the skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. We're going to do that again. Yarn over, insert into that skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2. And that completes that stitch. We're going to do it again. We're going to be working all the way until we get to that chain 2 space. So we're going to skip a stitch, single crochet into the next. Working back to that skip stitch, we are going to work a modified puff. We have 5 loops on our hook here. We're going to yarn over and pull through 4, then yarn over and pull through 2. So that is the first part of that wheat stitch that makes that braided look when we work it in rows. So now that we've done that repeat until we get to the chain 2 space, we are going to single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into the previous chain 2 space. And that's how that chain 2 space is going to be worked on every single row. Now we're going to go right back into the wheat stitch puff stitches. So we're going to skip the next, we're going to skip this next stitch, and we're going to single crochet into the next. And now working back to that skip stitch, we will work a puff stitch. And we'll work that repeat until we get to the very last stitch of the row, which I know this is a small row, so we only have 1 more to go. But as this gets bigger, that's what you will do as we work this with more and more stitches. So now we've worked our puff stitches till the very last stitch of the row, and we're going to single crochet 2 into the last stitch. Now every single row for this is going to increase by 4 stitches because we're increasing on our beginning edge and our last edge, and then we're increasing in the chain 2 space. That is row 1. When we come back to do this again and again, it's this rows 1 through 4 that are the repeats. So this is how row 1 will always be worked. Now we're going to turn our work and we're going to work row 2. Now on row 2, we're going to start by chaining 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets into that very first stitch. So that's our increase, our first increase for this row. And then we are going to single crochet into the next. For row 2, we'll need to add an extra stitch here before we start working those puff stitches. And now we're going to work the puff stitches until we get to the chain 2 space. So that sequence where we skip 1 and we single crochet into the next. And then we're going to go back to that skip stitch and work puff stitch. And we will be working that all the way until 1 stitch before the chain 2. The reason why is because we want to keep our puff stitches worked evenly with the puff stitches from the row before. So wherever there's a single crochet from the row before, that's where you're going to single crochet, and you'll be working puff stitches into the puff stitches of the previous row. So we're going to work until 1 stitch before the chain 2 space when we're working row 2. And as this gets bigger, you'll be working a lot more stitches, but it's the same repeat. Now that we're at 1 stitch before the chain 2 space, we are going to single crochet into the next. And now we're going to work our increase into the chain 2. So we're going to single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into that chain 2 space. And then we're going to single crochet into the next. That way we're going to get back on this pattern over here of the wheat stitch. Then we're going to skip the next and single crochet into the next. And then go back and work that puff stitch. And then we're going to work this repeat of skipping a stitch, working the puff stitch and the skipping a stitch, single crocheting, and then working a puff stitch into the skip stitch until we get to the last 2 stitches of this row. And now that we are to the last 2, we're going to single crochet into the next, and then 2 single crochet into the last. and that is row 2. It doesn't look like much right now, but as you get going, it will look like a lot more. And now we're going to turn our work and chain 1, and rows 3 and 4 are the same. So we're going to start by doing 2 single crochets into the first. And then we're going to single crochet in the back loop only all the way until we get to that chain 2 space. And now that we are at the chain 2 space, we will single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into that chain 2 space. And then we will simply single crochet in the back loop only until the last stitch of this row. And now in the last stitch, we'll simply single crochet 2 stitches into the last. And row 4 is an exact repeat of row 3. And then to make this bigger and bigger and bigger, we're just going to repeat rows 1 through 4. So like on this sample, you can see we just completed this section right here. But as we keep repeating and repeating, it just gets bigger and bigger with each section. And it makes a really nice design look to it. Now in the pattern, I show this in this beautiful yarn. This is a merino yarn by Bella Coco. This is so super squishy. It's also a Z twist, which means it's kind of made more for crocheters. It's the way that the yarn is spun, opposite from what you normally get at the craft store. So Z twist yarn is a little bit harder to find. You won't find as many yarn lines in it because it's more specific to crocheters, which, what are we doing? We're crocheting. So this is perfect for that. This yarn comes in 180 yards, and it's 100% merino wool. There is such a large color range. It was really hard for me to pick which colors to work with, so I went with rainbow. That way I could get one shade of each color because that seemed like the most fun thing to do. So I did my base color with this cream, and then I have done different colors at different points of this shawl. Now I've written this in the pattern if you want to make it the exact same way and the exact same size. We have a total of 20 repeats here, but as you can see on the last 6, all I'm doing is changing out the yarn. And I have woven in my ends here. So of course at the end of each color, you have to cut the yarn. But as far as the main color yarn, because you could use a darker yarn for this, you can use whatever main color yarn you want, and you can mix up these colors too to be maybe a palette that you enjoy. But when I'm working this, I never fastened off this yarn working the beginning of each row when I changed colors. Because we're doing the change of colors every 2 rows, we're always starting and stopping colors on this side. And because of that, you can kind of see it really hides well, where I simply just carried up the main color of yarn along here so I had less ends to weave in. Now, once you've finished the size of the shawl to the size you want, because like I said, you can make this very, very custom to the sizing. You can start, since we're starting right here at the center, we're just going to work our way out, and you can make it to however long you want and then stop. And I liked stopping on the single crochet in the back loop only repeat. So we've got 2 rows of the single crochet in the back loop only, and I'm back to this corner. This is the same corner where I was changing colors. The nice thing about ending on those 2 rows is now we can work our way across the top with the right side facing. We can just simply go right into that without having to fasten off. Now, do you have to do the step? Absolutely not. You do not have to do the step. This shawl looks great as is. You don't have to do a top edge. When you are doing a top edge, if you choose to do one, you'll want to make sure your stitches don't pull too tight because you want some flexibility here. And it might be a good idea to block it first to get your fabric to the drape you want before working across this top edge. So now I'm going to walk you through how we're just going to go from this corner to the next corner, top edge only, because these edges are finished off nicely, to finish off just this side to make it a little bit more clean. Now, once I get to this corner, instead of turning, we have the right side facing and I've chained 1. We're going to be working around this corner. And since we've increased here on the last stitches, as we do in that stitch repeat, we've already got a nice curl to work around this corner quite easily. So chain 1, and now I'm just going to work along this edge by inserting my hook and doing a single crochet stitch. And now we're going to start working this clean edge. I love this clean edge. It works fantastic. We're going to take our crochet hook and insert it into the left bar of that single crochet stitch we just made. And then we're going to go into the next spot on the shawl, yarn over and pull that loop through that fabric and through the first loop on the hook. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. Let's do that again. So through the left bar first, then into the next spot on the shawl. Then we'll yarn over and pull through the shawl and that first loop on the hook. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. That's going to be the repeat all the way across. So one more time, we're going to go through the left bar only of the stitch we just made into the shawl. And I'm placing these pretty close together through that first loop and then yarn over and pull through 2. And what this is doing is it's going to make a straight edge in one pass. So in the past, I may have slip stitched across this and then come back again, single crocheting in the front loop only of the slip stitch. But this is a way we can do it and have a nice crisp line that evens this out in one pass. You'll just want to be conscious about where you're entering on the shawl to make sure it's not pulling or tugging, and that it will lay flat when you are finished and not have any puckering. I'm going to do a little bit more of this to show you what it looks like across a lot of this edge. Now that we worked across here, I just want to show you what this all looks like. You've got this nice edge here. We're doing this all in one pass, and that makes it look really clean. Just to finish off the top edge by doing that one stitch all the way across, you can see the difference here. So this is the raw edge, the side of it that we haven't worked yet, and it's not quite as clean. And with all those strands, this really just evens it out and is a nice finish. Now, especially with triangle shawl patterns, when they start from the top center and the triangle shape builds itself out, you can really grab any yarn and go. You just have to check the drape more than the gauge, because if you're changing the weight of the yarn, you are going to want to change the hook. That way you get the right drape. Drape is more important because you can just make it to the size you want and stop, which is what I've been doing. I'm obsessed with this wheat stitch, and I wondered what it would look like in a shawl with a V. And I also wondered how the drape would be. I absolutely love it. Genuinely. Just grab some yarn from your stash and go. Now, my sister just mailed me one more shawl pattern that she did. She grabbed some blossom caron cakes from her stash and crocheted in that. And how stunning is that with this color work? You can see that this is a much, much bulkier yarn than these other two. But she went up hook sizes, got a great drape, and then just went. And this is all done with one colorway. It just changes as you work with it. And the result is stunning. So that's going to be more for a fall or winter, whereas the others are a bit lighter for spring or summer. I'm definitely loving the drape of all of these. So the main takeaway I want you to get from this pattern is you can use what's in your stash, grab what you want and go. And I am so excited to see what you make. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and come back for some more fun projects soon.